Welcome back, Picklers, another episode of the pod. We got the producer in the house and the GM back, and we got the 8.0 on the court training because he's about to be a 9.0. But we're back for another epi here, and we're talking everything paddles. As you can see behind us, we got paddles and everything from the history of Gen 1 all the way to Gen 4. And where the hell are we going on that rocket ship to Gen 10? Rylie in the house. What are we feeling here?
Feeling good. We got the United Nations of paddles behind us. We got the whole world represented here. We got Vietnam. We got China with RPM and pretty much any other brand.
We got Utah.
We got Utah. Shout out Utah, one of the only U.S.-made paddles. But before we deep dive into all of these, what was your first paddle?
My first paddle ever was a Onyx Z5.
How garbage was that thing?
Oh my! I can just remember the noise right now in the back of my head. Doing.
2x4.
It's so loud. Like that paddle just had the most distinct poppy noise ever.
Yeah, and no dwell time.
Negative dwell time.
Negative dwell time. Just insane vibrations. So like tennis elbow, you use it for 2 seconds. Done.
Let's guess GM's first paddle
ever. Tennis racket.
Kind of close.
Dead?
Tipty paddle?
No, it was a Bobble Up Rebel.
Oh, baby!
I picked that one just because of the colors.
Yeah.
It was baby blue and yellow, kind of.
Oh, that one! That one had about negative 12 sweet spot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was pretty smooth.
Yep. No grit whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like a baby space.
Exactly. So talking about that first generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gen 1s were basically just plywood with a little bit of carbon fiber around them.
Yeah, I mean,
Gen 1 had honeycomb.
No? Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like, the sensation of that paddle was nothing that you'd be like, oh, that felt great when you hit it.
Maximum vibration and no dwell.
Yeah. Minimal power.
Yeah.
And then get to the Gen 2s, right? We're starting to get some honeycomb-esque, not quite thermoformed.
But much softer.
Right? Would that be like a Selkirk Lux? Would that constitute as a Gen 2, or is that a Gen 3?
No, that is a
Halo's
Gen 2.
a Gen 2.
Well, it was a Gen 2.
Yeah.
It was a Gen 2. Yeah.
But Lux is they made it so thick that it was a way different feeling than a Gen 2.
It was a 20 mil though.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was a pillow.
When I think of Gen 2, it's like Halo was like a really popular paddle I've seen out there.
That was a Gen 1 though.
Yeah.
Halo?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even the paddle techs up until like their latest release of the Reserve was a Gen 1.5. And like Christian Alshon's still playing with a Gen 1.5 paddle in 2026. That's insane.
That's crazy. Shout out to Paddle Tech for having that longevity.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The fact that you guys released a paddle like 5 years ago and pros are still using it now is kind of crazy. Oh no, we're going to lose our paddles.
Oh no.
And then we get to the Gen 3, thermoformed. And that's when things got interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You actually had some good paddles at some more reasonable prices. What was your favorite Gen 3 paddle that when it first came out? Like, what was the one that you were like, okay, this is a step up from what I've been playing with?
Yeah, I mean...
Mine was the Joola 3, the one that got banned.
Yeah,
that was the most fun 2 weeks ever.
I remember...
You could do anything to a ball. Hit like a tennis racket.
Yeah.
So much spin. It was so much fun.
I remember at that time, like, I was still playing with a Carbon 3X.
Okay.
Pretty popular paddle, but when everyone was switching over to the Alphas, like, you could see a considerable difference just in the pop, and it was just insane. Like, once those things got banned, like, their game just changed.
Yeah. That mod, I still remember when the mods started coming in, and it was just like missile launch after missile launch. In the hands of the wrong person, you're like, I could die.
Like, so effortless.
Yeah, no swing. Like, you have an 80-year-old that's swinging a mod, and like, you gotta be ducking. Like, that thing's coming at your face hot.
And the thing about talking about like durability, nobody cared that their paddle would last a week or 2 weeks.
No.
Because it was so good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that some companies are still reliant on that right now, where like they're just going off pure performance but no longevity. And like I saw a video the other week where they're talking about, I forgot, it was one of the podcasts, like Zane Navratil or something. And he was like, all these companies were developing durability, but no one cared about durability. Like the paddles didn't sell. And obviously if you're selling a paddle that's durable, no one's going to come back and buy another one. So unfortunately, those are the companies that kind of like died off. And it was the ones that maximized performance at the expense of durability. I'm not going to say any names, but one of them might be on the wall behind us here, where, that still arguably to this day is kind of where they're at, where they're like, yeah, well, we'll just warranty it. We have enough cushion within how much we're selling this paddle for that the average Joe might warranty it once or twice.
Yeah, and then, I mean, it's a great point. And now talking about, those Gen 3 paddles, performance-wise, amazing. Durability-wise, not so much. So now let's look into Gen 4. And, these companies say, Gen 4, we've done our tests. We've put our paddles against all these machines, man versus machine. And these paddles are holding up to the test in terms of durability-wise, right? And what's your take on Gen 4 as being the most durable?
I think it's all marketing, in all honesty. Like I had a carbon True Foam Genesis that I bought with my own money, and I love that paddle so much. And literally within 2 months, I had to send it back because it had a rattle inside of it, and it also just died. Like the sensation of hitting that foam completely changed. And I think the big thing that like the average consumer, if you're looking at a Gen 4 paddle and a Gen 3, the biggest thing with the Gen 3 is when it goes wrong, you hear it, right? Like the sound of that paddle changes. You know when a Gen 3 is core crushed because like bonk, bonk, bonk.
Yeah.
And you can hear the honeycomb crunching, whereas when you have a Gen 4 with these different density foams, you're not going to have that same sound recognition that it's dead. But I mean, there's been times where like we have people that are buying some pretty expensive Gen 4 paddles. You hit hard with it for 3 or 4 months, and it doesn't give you the same sensation. So, like, is it as serious and, like, detrimental as you would experience with a Gen 3? I don't think so.
Only time will tell.
I think only time will tell.
We have a member in Hamilton, and his desponded, I don't know what the right term is. Yeah, BoomStik, Gen 4. And you hear it, sounds like a Gen 3, where it's that big thud now on one side. The other side doesn't sound like that.
No.
Yeah,
and it's insane. Like the smallest motion, it's just like. Whew.
But like looking into these paddles, I don't think when we were talking about Gen 1 and Gen 2, the placement of the materials of where they're putting the foam and the density of the foam and how soft it is versus how hard it is. Like I don't think they were playing around and tinkering as much as to where we are now.
No.
So in 2 years from now, do you see pros playing with Gen 3 still 2 years from now?
I would not put it past the factories in China to come up with something that is better than Gen 4, that's more similar to Gen 3. But I think there's still a lot of companies coming out with Gen 3 paddles that are better than the Gen 3 paddles that we had a year or two ago. And I still think like the understanding around a lot of those is relatively in its infancy. Like if you look at the lifetime of these paddles, like how long they've been around, I think, Gen 4 we're still very much in the infancy. Like the Genesis was like the True Foam from Carbon was like the first all foam. And that had a different sensation like than a bunch of these other foam paddles get now. But I still think like RPM is probably the best example. Like 6 months later after the V1, they come up with the V2. And it's like, how did they make this better? And it's still a Gen 3, right? They didn't change anything that crazy, but I think it goes into
like, they did something. They did something to change it because I'm telling you that ball is just way crispier.
Yeah,
and you're getting more power, and the sweet spot has not been sacrificed. So whatever they've played around with and tuned in, shout out to them.
Yeah.
On a side note, if you're still watching this video right now, we are going to be giving away a free RPM paddle of your choice on this podcast.
Yeah, V1.
V1, yeah. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
So if you are watching by the end of this podcast, we will give you a code and you will use that word in our Instagram You'll have to like, subscribe, and comment that secret word that Rylie reveals, and you will have a chance to win an RPM V1 of your choice.
Yeah, and so we're going to basically do a random draw. We're going to put a bunch of names into a random selector, and you're going to have to put that word, but the things that are going to help you a little bit more are subscribing on YouTube, liking the video, and if you go over to our Instagram, follow us there, and message us on Instagram. All of those go as entries that will hopefully allow you to get a better chance of winning that V1 paddle. So that'll be a choice of a 14 or 16 mil elongated or the 16 mil wide body, which up until about a week ago was my main paddle. So great one, but you'll have to watch the end of the video. I'm going to give you one secret word, so please don't jump forward now and go and find it, because we're going to try and hide it. But yeah, I mean, like going back to, you know, the Gen 3 versus the Gen 4, like I think a lot of people objectively think when they think Gen 4, well, that has to be better than Gen 3 because it's the new generation.
Yeah.
And like, if you were to pick a paddle right now that you have to play with, which would you choose? Would you choose Gen 3 or Gen 4?
Good question. I mean, like right now, I've just dialed in on that EVA foam. So I'm really rocking the Gen 4. I feel like it has that feel for me that I like. And obviously the power's off the charts.
Yeah.
I still went back to the RPM V2 because I just played for the first time. I was using the V1, but I tried the V2 last week, and amazing, like so easy to just transition to. You know, BoomStik's been really easy for me to play with because one of my favorite paddles ever was the 002. I went through like 10 of those. But I'm really excited for the RPM Q2. I think that's going to be my new main.
I think so
when it comes around the corner.
Yeah. Like,
put the hype aside. I'm just so curious to see how they dialed it in.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I talk to a lot of individuals that are looking to purchase or upgrade their paddles, and you know, I get so many people just watching these reviews online. And we've ordered so many of these paddles, and you really have to try them out. And everybody has a different sensation, different feel. And, you know, I'd really suggest going to demo these paddles rather than just purchasing what everyone says.
Yeah. Because
it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
No. No. And what would you choose, Max, right now? What have you been rocking? Has it been more Gen 3 or more Gen 4 lately?
I don't know. Recently, we've been talking with a lot of different companies, so they'll always send a paddle. Biggest thing for our store is we always try before we buy for our consumers. So I've been trying a lot of them. There's lots of ones that I could probably just start using. Right now, I'm using the Cosmos 16.
Yeah.
So Gen 3, still just really like that feel. I used the BoomStik for a little bit. And the Genesis 3 for a bit, but I'm sticking with the Cosmos. I just haven't got my hands on a V2 yet.
Yeah.
They've been hoarding them all here in Toronto, so haven't had any in Hamilton yet, so I'll be taking some back later today and get to work with those. So I do want to try that. They're so gritty.
Yeah.
I guess that's OPA, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Rylie, for you, you know, someone who's always tinkering and testing and you know, and making your paddle look the best. I don't know that you're playing the best with it, but definitely looks the best.
The looks are like, I'm a 9-0 on looks alone. Just like no one's going to beat me on best looking on the court. It makes up for everything else.
But all jokes aside, what are you rocking with these days in your bag of 25 paddles?
I mean, these are literally all paddles in my bag right now, and I think it just goes to feeling, right? And I think like if you were to be watching this and like, okay, how do I start deciding between Gen 3 or Gen 4? Unfortunately, you're going to have to get your hands on some of these, and if you are around an OPA store, you can definitely go and check these out. We've got demos of all of our paddles, but it goes off of feeling. Like I wouldn't say right now I'm seeing any sort of crazy difference in power from Gen 3 or Gen 4, right? Like there's Gen 3, like that new V2 from RPM, I would argue hits as hard as a BoomStik. But the way it feels when it's leaving that paddle is totally different. And I think that's where Gen 3 and like its overall feeling is more tennis string like, where like you get that little bit more pocketing, a little bit more ball feel, and that's something that, like, coming from a tennis background, that's something that I kind of gravitate towards. And I think that there's more variety in feel from Gen 3 than there is in Gen 4, because there's just more understanding around those Gen 3 paddles, and like, how can we, put more foam in the throat, and, doing all these different things. Like the new Joola Pro 5, I hated the Pro 4. Like, if you know me at all, I was never saying anything nice about that Pro 4. The Perseus, I actually like the Anna Bright. Hyperion was okay. This paddle and how they reiterated on that Gen 3, I actually really like the way that face is flexing. I've never seen anything flex where, like, you usually have that, like, trampoline effect or the diving board effect. This has, like, a different shift, but it also made it have a different sensation that I hadn't felt in any other paddle.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's like RPM V1 versus V2. The smallest differences can make the biggest changes in just that output, and you don't need to go back to the drawing board and redesign a paddle from scratch.
Yeah.
Maybe you just need to make those minor little tweaks, and that's the difference between something good and something great.
Right.
But I mean, when you're Max, when you play, what are the 3 main factors you're looking for in your paddle? If you can only pick 3 in terms of power, spin, dwell, like, what are you looking for?
I like feel soft with power, I guess, and grip. So the Pro 4s were so smooth.
So going back a couple of years, that was impossible.
Yeah, you had to choose one or the other.
Yeah, you had to go either, really stiff, kind of piece of plywood, but, a lot more power, or something super soft with just straight control. But now, to where this paddle technology has come today is kind of light years, and I'm so excited to see, looking back at this pod 5 years from now, where the hell we're going, right? Yeah. But now you can really choose a 16 with power, a 14 that, doesn't feel like a diving board. I'm sorry, like a piece of plywood, right?
Yeah.
So what are you rocking? Like, what are you going for in terms of, like, specs on your paddle?
So I mean, right now the things that I'm looking for the most is, I think, dwell time is probably most, like, top of my list, because I don't really have a problem generating power. I don't think that's, like, an issue. But I prefer spin and dwell. Main reasons why is that spin allows deception on shots, whereas, like, power, I mean, like the BoomStik, yeah, it hits hard, but, like, where that ball's going. It's coming fast, but, like, where it's going. It's going in a straight line, usually at your face.
Players are good enough to counter you.
Right, exactly. All they have to do is hold the paddle up. That's it. But, like, I think the RPM, like, when I first got it and I was hitting, there were so many shots that, like, I hit a drive, and I was like, oh, that ball's going out. And then all of a sudden, it just starts spinning. It hits the back line. Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that, like, if you're looking for, competing at a higher level, it's that level of deception of, like, they think it's going long, and they're going to leave it, and then that ball just taps in, right? Like, that to me is more important than pure power, because a lot of the time, like the BoomStik, I literally had a whole session with one of my friends on, like, how much can I actually touch this ball when I'm at the kitchen line when they're firing a hard drive. And it got to the point where I was literally, like, holding the paddle out front of me, and it was still going to the baseline.
Yeah, I mean, if the BoomStik, I think, is a very honest paddle, and it's in terms of, if your swing is not compact and you just do a little too much, it's very unforgiving. Whereas, something that's going to give you a little bit more dwell and spin, that ball, that's the difference of that ball staying in. So, I mean, you really have to think about, in terms of paddles, like, I see a lot of 3.5s using BoomStiks.
Yeah.
And sometimes I question their decisions. I know the paddle looks amazing. The MOI tuning weights are great. Out of the box, great balance.
Yes.
But do you really need all that power? And is that going to... Yeah, and price.
The price is the other thing, too, right? Like, I think that's the big thing is now, like, these big brands, before they could kind of demand whatever they wanted, right? Because there wasn't a lot of competition. But now you've got companies like Luz coming out with, like, their Pro, like their Canon, which is basically a Joola Pro 4, you're getting it like on Amazon sale for like $110. Mm-hmm. How can you compare that to a $370 paddle? And they're basically the exact same. And like, I think that's going to be the thing that's going to kind of be the biggest shakeup over the next couple of years, is all these brands coming direct from China, or like something that they're not these huge, massive brands that, like, in all honesty, their decision making has to be slow. Like, they're much bigger organizations where they've got like 10 layers of people that it has to go through before, like, oh yeah, let's go.
Yeah. I mean,
their prices will go up after the fact they start sponsoring players and have more expenses.
I think 11.624 is probably the best example of that, right? Like, I was an ambassador for 11.624 when I first got into pickleball, because it was like that $200 to $300 paddle that, like, you'll get a great paddle that will allow like 90% of players to play well.
Affordability versus performance.
Exactly. But it struck that perfect balance of, like, it performed really well, but it was at a great price. Now, I mean, that same, like, their new Power 2 that Deckel's using, I mean, once you get it into Canada with shipping and taxes, you're looking at $380.
Yeah, exactly.
For $380, we can pretty much be in any category.
Exactly. Right? Like, at that level, you're competing with the RPMs. You're competing, like, you're getting pretty close to the Yolas. You're like,
if you're spending $380, why not buy a BoomStik, right? Like, it's the same category pretty much.
Yeah.
Anything $350 plus, I'd say. But, you know, good point, going back to those factory direct brands. I think that's really kind of changing the landscape in terms of being able to control your production, your shipping, and just all those different facets of the business controlled under one roof makes such a big difference. But one thing I always go back to, you know, as you know, we have our retail side of OPA, and when I help customers, we don't just sell them paddles and say, see you later, you know, see you next paddle purchase. It's always, sometimes that customer comes back and, you know, they break their paddle or that paddle's defective. So, you know, going back to buying these brands that don't really have a presence in Canada, how do you find yourself dealing with warranty claims and all that sort of stuff, right? Because that's a very important side of the business when you are spending $300, even $200, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think you guys would probably have a bit more understanding of how that, like, warranty side comes, because I've, like, the only time I've ever had to warranty a paddle was my carbon one.
And what'd you have to do for that?
I literally had to pay for the shipping to send it back to California, and then them send me another one, which, like, speaking candidly, didn't leave the best taste in my mouth after almost spending $400 on a paddle that broke after 2 months.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, I'm out of a paddle, and I have to pay you guys for shipping too.
Yeah. That's what I think the biggest thing is for the companies that will do really well in the next couple of years, is they have that, like, warranty side down to a T, where no customer should be left paddleless because something happened, manufacturer or not manufacturer. Like, you shouldn't be paddleless because your company's overseas or whatever that is, even from Canada to US, whatever that is. There has to be something where they can get a paddle quickly and not be penalized for it.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that just comes down to customer service.
Yeah.
And, you know, that full cycle of, you know, you buy your paddle, right? You know, you come back, you need an overgrip because, you know, some of the paddles out of the box don't have the best grips, right? Mm-hmm. And now, you know, your edge guard comes loose after a while. Where do we begin? Some companies say, okay, let's automate the process. What should we do? Customer, can you please upload a couple pictures to our website and we'll handle your claim in, you know, 7 business days, right? Now customer has to go, drop off the paddle, pay for shipping, send it back, and wait to hear what happens in that cycle.
Yeah.
Whereas if that company wanted to service their customer, you know, to the best of their ability and have that full cycle of customer service, what would they do? We have direct places in Canada where you can go to drop off your paddle. They're going to give you a brand new one. They're going to warrant your claim, and they're going to take care of you because we're a loyal brand and we really care about you.
Well, I think that kind of goes to the bigger issue that we have in Canada, is that we're kind of viewed as, like, second-tier citizens. Like, we are obviously not, we don't have anywhere the market that they do in the US or in Vietnam. So it makes sense that, like, obviously we don't get crazy priority, but, like, there's a lot of companies that if, like, you want to bring in their paddle, I mean, once you pay for duties and stuff, you could be paying another $150 in duties on top of the paddle. And that's to say that you can actually get it. Like, there's been times lately from companies that I've had relationships with that they release it to everyone else, and I see all these reviewers down in the States, they got their hands on paddles, that it's like, well, why don't I have this? Like, why haven't you taken that effort?
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair, and that really gets me thinking now. Like, the way companies do business in Vietnam is different than how companies operate in America, and it's different than how companies operate in Canada. Yeah. You know, talking about Canada for a second, when I say the word Canada and I say paddles, what comes to your mind? Anything?
Like, in terms of a brand?
Yeah.
I mean, the only one that comes to mind is NXTGen, just because they've done, like, a really good job at putting themselves in every single Pickleplex location across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And would you know that brand if you were, like, BC? Or
I don't think so.
Just because you're local?
No, I think it's a local thing as of right now, and that's where, like, I think that's anywhere in the, like, especially like when I was down in Vegas, everyone was using a Thrive paddle. It's like, you never see a Thrive paddle in Florida, like, rarely in Florida. You definitely wouldn't see it in Canada. So I think, like, there's certain paddles that are local specific, where it's like, oh, we know the owner, so, like, you don't even say, like, there were people who are like, oh, we're not going to even say anything bad about the paddle because, like, the guy comes and plays around.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, like, NXTGen's probably pretty similar in Canada, where, like, and I say this with all honesty because I know Tom and Justin from NXTGen, but, like, I even said to them, like, you know, you guys haven't made any good paddles that I've been willing to tell people about. And, like, obviously that makes it so that your brand is really small beyond, like, the scope of someone walking into that facility.
Yeah, I mean, listen, to put up a NXTGen Gen 3 against another Gen 3, like, the differences are minor. You know, NXTGen has some pretty well-priced products, I must say.
Yep. The new stuff that they're coming out with is very good. Justin has been doing some great work on that, I have to say.
We'll wait to see it, right? Yeah. But, I mean, the biggest thing, I got to shout out to the OGs. Maybe this was before both of your primes. There was a company based out of Guelph, Ontario. If you're listening still and you are an OG player, let's say 2019 and earlier, there was a company called Singleton. I'm sure you remember, based out of Guelph. They were probably the first paddles.
I've heard about it just from our members talking about it in Hamilton.
That's the first time I've ever heard it.
Mr. Razor had a couple of them.
Singleton was probably the first company to think about putting raw carbon on a paddle face, number one. They had really interesting shapes called, like, the Fat Boy. The handle was like 3 inches and the paddle surface took up the whole court. I remember one of my first tournaments ever, I went up against Willie Ottawa, OG Willie. I'm sure you're watching because you're loyal and I love you. But Willie, OG player, I swear he's still using the Fat Boy. And this guy just had the most beautiful rolls. You could see that raw carbon just gripping the Franklin ball. And, you know, they had major market share in the Ontario market, at least, because I wasn't traveling across Canada to see what other players were using, but they had major market share. And where I see everything was made in Canada as well, which was, you know, I wanted to support them. People were very loyal. But where I see their downfall started and spiraled very quickly was just they couldn't keep up with innovation. And maybe they were ahead of their time, I don't know. But the cost of maybe producing all that on the ground in Canada just didn't make sense. And you know, I wish they were still around today just to see, like, what they could accomplish. Right. Because it's always great to support that, you know, that homegrown story. But, you know, shout out to Singleton. We miss you.
Yeah. Well, and I think that kind of goes to, like, the bigger thing of there's so much production that's in China now. And, like, there's so many, like, there's probably a handful of factories that are producing majority of the paddles. And, like, if you're looking at buying a paddle in 2026, I think the first point of research that you want to do about that company is, like, are they just buying a factory paddle off the line with no innovation. Like you and I could walk there right now, say, hey, factory, we want 1,000 of these paddles.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, we have them already produced. Out the door you go. So like if you see a company that's like basically using the same buzzwords, that's kind of my telltale sign that that's probably a factory paddle. But the people that actually care, that they know how to design those paddles, they're taking that factory one and saying, okay, I like this aspect of this, but I want this, this, and this in it. And then they start creating their own.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's a good point. I think really that's why, I mean, Joola's best asset has always been John's.
Yep.
Just because he has that kind of materials sciences background.
Yep.
And he also is one of the best players, if not the best player in the world.
Yep.
So those two worlds, when he's kind of creating the paddle and he understands the science behind the paddle, I mean, like, look at their new paddle, for example. He can just talk about making those minor tweaks with their team, and they can move really quickly and you know, work like that. Whereas maybe there's some crazy engineer out there, and like he does the craziest stuff, the deepest stuff that other people can't really understand or relate to, and they're really not getting the same output because they don't have that playing side.
No.
To understand both sides, to me, is so important, being a player and the engineer and working together, understanding really what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, when I listen to, you know, other podcasts and other, you know, other engineers and technical individuals talk, like the wording gets so out there that sometimes you don't even know what they're talking about, you know? So, I mean, I think it's so important to just simplify things and have that player-first brand.
Yes, for sure. And I think that's where, like, probably why James Ignatowitch has done such a good job. And I'm going to give you a little sign that word, Ignatowitch, is your secret word. So if you want your entry for your V1, it's Ignatowitch, so you leave that in the comments. But I think that's kind of the perfect example of when you have literally a top 10 player in the world moving to China, going to the factory every day, understanding the process, going with a great team like Marwan and those guys around him, to produce something that, you know, other companies, it could take them years, if ever, to produce something at that level. The fact that the V1 was so good and that was the first paddle that they ever released, I think just goes into just showing when you have that perfect mixture of like that super technical person that understands the material science, engineering, all of these things, plus having one of the top players in the world be like, hey, this is how this should feel. Like, it's nice to have your tech specs, but like, if it doesn't feel good in the person's hand, like the average 3.0 that's buying that $300 paddle, they don't know all those buzzwords that the engineer's worrying about, but they care about the feel. And I think that's where, like, we're going to see, like, my prediction for 2026 and 2027 is we're going to see more pro players start pairing off with companies to have a bit more of that relationship where they're going to be, you know, the soldier on the ground that's telling you like, okay, hey, I played X amount of hours with this. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. But pair that with an amazing R&D team that can actually do the technical side of things.
Yeah, I mean, very good point. And we got early word that the Q3 is going to have an open throat on the paddle. So you heard that first over here on this pod, right?
Carbon fiber.
Ignatowitch loved that, you know, that
Selkirk throat.
Yeah, right. So we know that there's on the Q3. That's the tip.
Yeah. We'll have to see. But now that we've arguably ended the power arms race with everyone trying to get the most powerful paddle, right? We already had control before that. Like the Selkirk Lux was like, how controlled can we make this? What do you think's next? I mean, we're already kind of seeing it with grit, but do you think it's going to be grit? Do you think it's going to be durability? Do you think it's going to be dwell time? Like, what do you think is the next thing that we've got to kind of think about to push these paddles that much better? Because as we said, like, they're already powerful, they're already controlled. What's left?
Yeah, I mean, listen.
I mean, the company that builds the paddle, like a Joola Pro 4, that has grit and that lasts forever, obviously they're going to win. It's just, can you get all those things in one paddle? You see it, like, if you watched any of the PPA stuff last year, there's so many people using the Pro 4 and none of them are signed.
Yeah.
There's like a handful of players that get paid from them, and then everybody else just pays for it or gets it for free from someone. And everybody used it because it was the best paddle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, what's really interesting is obviously the individuals here who are the masters of creating these paddles. They're also the masters of reverse engineering the rules in the system, the UPA certifications, the US APA. So if they come out and they release some new crazy paddle, whatever the technology that's implemented in the paddle is going to be something that bends the rules in pickleball. And that's always what it's been.
Yeah.
Looking at the spin serve, now, even the Pro 5, how the paddle flex is, like that's getting away from, grid and dwell, right? So they're always going to be bending the rules to the maximum allowable limit and thinking about new things. And what happens? The first company to do it, there's always a million companies to follow them.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's where like the copycats are pretty ubiquitous across. Like I think over the past 2 months, we've seen everyone become obsessed with grit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, can I have the grittiest paddle with the longest durability on that grit? And while it's nice to like always touch your paddle and be like, oh, it's still gritty. If you were to look at the paddles that produce the most amount of spin, I don't think it's actually the surface texture that's creating that spin, right? It's actually the dwell time. Because if you think about how long that ball is sitting on that face while you're hitting it, grit, yeah, does it help? For sure. But like how many Joolas are like smooth as could be, but they produce a lot of spin.
Yeah.
And I think that's like whoever can figure out feeling and dwell to accentuate spin, to accentuate ball feel, like how connected do you feel when you hit that ball?
Yeah.
Like when I did the interviews with a couple of our coaches, both CNPL players, shout out to Danny and Rizzo, did their interviews completely separately. They did not hear each other. Both of them said, when I asked them, what do you look for in your paddle? They both said dwell.
Wow.
Right? And that I don't think that's by accident. Like to hear two pro players come to the same answer on dwell and feeling being what they look for most.
Do you think it's because when the paddle dwells on the surface, it still gives it that power and spin, whereas something a bit stiffer obviously you don't get that same feel. So these players are looking for that maximum feel that doesn't sacrifice the power.
Well, I think that's kind of why so few pros use the BoomStik, right? Like the BoomStik, again, like does it that ball come off hot? Absolutely. But like, is there a lot of shape to that ball? Not a ton, because it's relatively stiff. Like that ball is not sitting in the face that long. It's like hitting and then leaving. It's going really fast, but it doesn't have any shape to it. Like it's a very linear experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And I mean, listen, we can sit here and we can, talk about, different specs of paddles all day, because there's a million paddles out there now.
Yep.
And there's a million brands. Maybe 10 years from now, a lot of those brands are now cut out of the equation, maybe because the certification becomes so expensive or they run out of money, but who the hell knows, right? We'll find out in 10 years. I want to chat a little bit about your guys' opinions on if there is any ROI in sponsoring pros and creating these signature paddles like we see behind us. We have the Ben Johns, we have the new Nick Kyrgios Vulcan collab. We have the former Kwang Dong and Saipik. So what are your takes on that?
I think that's actually something that we should share in the next video, because I think that there's a huge deep dive on that in terms of like the metrics on like how much they're actually earning back from that. How does it help the average person? I think that that's actually a longer conversation that needs to be had, and I would like to actually come with some numbers to be like, what does this actually look like?
I challenge you to gather all the data.
I'm going to do my best. I'm going to go and do my homework, but I think That's probably it for this week.
Yeah.
How about some accessories?
Some accessories? I think that's another one. Like, I think there's just so many fun accessories.
This guy needs six.
I need an episode per one. I could talk about this forever.
Shout out Sweet Spot.
Strips. But yeah, tons of fun chatting about this stuff as always. I could chat about it for days with you guys, and I always like to get Dan in here, so we need a bigger couch. Otherwise, we're going to be snuggling a little bit closer. But yeah. That word, if you want to put yourself in for the draw to win an RPM V1, is Ignatowitch. Hopefully you didn't skip from the beginning of the video to just this. But yeah.
We're out of here. Thank you guys for listening. Always a pleasure. And we'll see you guys again next week.
And buy your paddles at OPA.